Chris, tell us about this photo.
So I can't remember the name of the street, but this made it on CNN and all over the place when this actually happened. Marines pulled the statue of Saddam Hussein down. So
Right.
you've got the building behind was the Hilton, I think it was, and then the building to the right that you can't see was where all the news reporters and everybody stayed at.
Yeah.
Until the war all started and all this, and then this is obviously after the people, demonstrating to the people that Saddam Hussein, his military has been taken over and
Right.
got up there and
Yeah, that famous video of the statue of Saddam Hussein coming down. I think, was it a Marine tank that helped to pull it
yes,
down?
I'm glad you said that. I don't want to say
Yeah.
it because I can't remember exactly
fine.
what everybody's seen that happened, but
Yeah, and so the tank helped to bring it down, and then
you can see
and
the
then-
body parts of that statue laying around.
yeah, and then people famously came up and started beating on it with their shoes, which was a sign of disrespect. And very early in the war, I mean, that was a video that made me and I think a lot of Americans think, oh, another easy victory in Iraq. This thing's going to be over real soon. Of course, things changed. Had you gotten to this square before the statue came down?
These pictures were actually taken the day after the statue was
Day after the
taken
statue
down.
was
yeah.
down. Okay. Let's go to, but this is your personal photo
Yes, sir.
that you took on the
Yes,
scene.
sir.
You know, I'm noticing there's no one around. I mean, it's
Mhm.
kind of strange.
Now
do you have
again,
any-
so this has become a military, Marine staging area.
I
So
see,
we've got
okay.
our security and
Oh,
everything
okay.
around.
So
I think a couple of the other photos I have of this you can kind of see the Marines out
I see.
on the perimeter.
So that explains why there aren't any folks. That's just a
Right.
security perimeter. Oops. What about this photo here?
Yep, that's the new king of. No, I'm just kidding. So this was actually, we're now inside the palace in Baghdad.
Yeah.
The photo on the back, where the mural on the back is supposed to be Nebuchadnezzar and his wife. Saddam Hussein thought he was a direct descendant of Nebuchadnezzar. You've seen statues of this guy all over the place, and then
Yeah.
you've seen big, huge, larger than life-size portraits of both Saddam and Nebuchadnezzar looking at each other all over the place. And so this was, I don't know if it was like his main meeting room or if this is where he sat when he wanted to feel important
Yeah.
or what the deal was, but it was just kind of a, we
Mm.
captured, we got, so
Mhm.
we couldn't take stuff home, but we could take pictures.
Yeah, and I've heard some military people say, and I think this is true, that that most people read about history, but if you're in the military, you have a good chance of making it
And living it, yeah.
and living it. And I mean, this photo. As you look at that photo, of course, it tells me, it reminds me of that very early enthusiasm. Like, wow, we got another easy victory, took down the Iraqis again, and this is going to be an easy thing. And then time goes on, and the insurgency kicks up, and it gets a lot more complicated. But I look at this photo, and it just seems to capture that early thing. Like, wow, this was pretty easy, and look how amazing the U.S. military is, and so on. What comes to your mind when you?
Well,
when you
again,
see
this
photo?
this particular picture was days before Easter, so this is April, right? And yeah, so that whole thought process of we've secured Baghdad, we've secured all the palaces, we've got the capital, we've got the airport, we've got everything.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much done, right? So that's where we're at. So again, now what are we going to do next? We're going to start rebuilding, working on the infrastructure, gaining the trust of the people first,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
how do we help them
Sure.
realize we're here for them, we're not here for us.
Right.
And again, that's us on the ground. That's how we're thinking.
Right.
Whatever was going on, the media or political side of it, we didn't have TVs. We were watching CNN,
Yeah.
Fox News every day.
So after the, it looks like when it looks like the major military work is done in Baghdad, then the next question is, so how do we turn the country back over to the Iraqis?
I think so. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Pretty quick for us.
For you guys.
Right.
Now, of course, when you get to the big level, the decision makers, then that's a different discussion. One of the early reports, that came out was looting when the government of Saddam Hussein clearly was no longer in control, and the security forces were not in control. Then some folks took advantage of that and began to loot. Did you see any of that yourself?
We did, and again, it's coming from 25 years of not having nothing, 25 years of wondering if and when our electricity, our water is going to be turned off, all this type of stuff, and then seeing Saddam, his officers, his group of people, his loyalists living high on the hog.
Yeah.
And so, so when they realize, ooh, this stuff is open, free, grabbing, they were ripping the electrical wires, they're taking toilets out, they were taking everything out. Not to put in their houses, but to take out, because he doesn't deserve it. This is stuff that should have been ours. You know.
Wow. So you saw this.
And we had to stop that. And
Oh, you
even again, so we're in Baghdad here. So, I don't know if you've got any of the pictures of the ruins of ancient Babylon. I keep saying Baghdad. It's actually Babylon is where we're at. So, you got the ancient ruins of Babylon there. And there was a museum, just a small little museum that they had there. And the people went there and took everything.
The ancient stuff.
Yeah, that had nothing to do with war, but the fact that they never had the opportunity to experience that history or any of that type of stuff. It was off. Nobody went there. If you were a peasant or a local person or whatever, you didn't have access to any of that type of stuff.
Now, did you guys then? You've got stories of 4,000-year-old stuff being ripped off from museums, and who knows what happens to it. Imagine a lot of it's destroyed, some of it's sold on the black market. What images do you have? People walking down the street carrying mattresses and stuff like that?
No. It's not like, what happens in the U.S. when we have a hurricane or a tornado or a mass riot. People are throwing rocks through windows and, taking TVs and all that type of stuff.
Right.
It's more of I've seen it more as a righteous anger.
Yeah.
I have this right. This guy had,
Paybacks.
Now that we're not under his control, under his domain, under his fear, I have this right to show my anger, what he's done to me for 25 years, how my family had to live for 25 years. That's how I've seen it,
Yeah.
So there was probably a lot of sympathy for them, but at the same time, understanding where they're coming from, let's get all that stuff back. Anything that had that type of value to it, we're going to buy it back. Let us buy it from you. So we're not going to turn you in. You're not going to get arrested. You're not going to get in trouble. Let us buy that stuff from you because it is value. And maybe one day we can restore this country. We can restore this community. And maybe one day airlines are flying into Kuwait International and people are getting on buses and doing tours and all this type of stuff and coming to your neighborhood and putting money into it.
This is the hope.
And of course we're not there. So that's 2003. It's 15 years later, and we're nowhere near there.
Were you part of that process of trying to buy stuff back?
Yes. So one of the things that we were doing in Babylon is after the war was over, we were bringing in the local men and paying them to come in and help rebuild the palace, rebuild the grounds, providing services for the military, i.e. barbershop, tailoring type stuff, trying to help them, build it, not giving them stuff, but rebuilding the dignity and all that type of stuff. And again, at the same time, as they're building that trust with us, then they're able to say, over there is where one of the brigade guys live at.
Did you experience that?
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
Did locals tell you who some of the future insurgents were?
And one of the other things that we wanted to do is the whole mass grave sites.
I think we'll see that.
Yeah. So and that was probably for me with the little firefights that we experienced for the security patrols, convoys, and all that type of stuff that we did. going house to house, all that type of stuff. I think the hardest thing for me was actually these mass grave sites. I think.
Yeah, well, we've got I think we have a picture or two of that in the discussion that we'll look at. Let's just look at this last photo here. And this is, you have several photos like this, so I don't know if you specifically remember this boy, but just what theme comes to your mind about, this very early stage of the Iraq War when you look at this photo?
Well, again, for him, as for me in that picture, where we're at right there took time to get to. The trusting that he didn't have anything on him that was going to cause harm to me or my Marines as we let him into the palace area, and him feeling safe to be able to approach us, right? So it's a mutual thing. But through time, being there for the weeks that we were there, just building a relationship with not only him, but his family, his fathers, his uncles, all the guys in the community.
See, what you're saying is really important, because it doesn't really, I haven't studied this war as close as I've studied, say, Vietnam, but kind of the general story that you seem to get is you get the invasion, super easy. The Americans hadn't really thought very much about rebuilding, but it sounds like you're saying at the ground level that wasn't actually true, that, after the military stuff is done, and it's done pretty quickly, then immediately we go into this mode about, the winning hearts and minds, right? It sounds like that was that, contrary to a sort of a general story, that no, winning hearts and minds was a basic element of the operation pretty much from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I said earlier, we didn't get a whole lot of time to watch CNN and Fox and all this other type of stuff, and that's where, unfortunately, that's where everybody was getting their information from for the most part, and that wasn't the case. We were, again, so I'm at the command level as far as the unit that I'm with, so if we're doing that, that's what's being disseminated all the way down to the lowest unit, and if the Marines are doing that, obviously the Army's doing that, everybody's doing that where and when we can, based on, the locations and all that. So it was relevant, it was real, and it was a process. Now again, of course, we pull out the majority of our guys out of there. It took a while to do, and that's when we started really seeing more and more of the insurgents coming in, more of the Taliban type, type stuff kicking in. And I was out of there. I was actually out of there by then, because I was getting out of the military that October. And
at the end, so you do 3 months in Iraq, 2003. At the end of that 3 months, did you feel pretty confident that this was going to work?
I did actually, and I think even as I was leaving, the guys at my unit, the people there, all felt pretty confident that we're going to be, we've made a difference. It's going to be a different life for these folks and all that type of stuff. And so, now you look back, and I do, that young man that was on there, a couple other young guys, this young kid named Leek, whose dad was Abid, who was kind of my interpreter for the local guys and all that type of stuff. I kind of do wonder, 15 years later, where are these boys at? What's going on? And just how their community, how so it's. The news from. Of course, the news about everything. If it's news, it's probably bad news. But the general news that we get from Iraq is not great news these days. But, well, let's end this discussion here, and we'll pick up. Okay.